What's going on, everybody? RDAP Dan. Happy, what's today? Monday. Happy Monday to everybody. Federal Prison Time Consulting. And today we've got an awesome guest with us. Once again, we've got Sean Cowgill, who we're going to be bringing on here in just a second. Give you a quick introduction what today's video is going to be about. Obviously, we're talking about RDAP. A lot of the videos are about RDAP, specifically how people can qualify and some avoidable pitfalls to stay away from. So many of you are probably wondering or worried that you may not qualify for RDAP, either because you don't have the information in your PSR, you haven't done your PSR yet. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But first, I'd like to introduce you guys all to Sean Cowgill. For those of you that don't know him, he is the founder and creator of Federal Prison Talk. Sean, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Dan. Doing really good. Thank you for having me on. I've lived both sides. I've done like you, I've done the time. But then I've done the work after prison to get where I am today. And I'm not rich or anything by any means, but I'm happy.
And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, Sean, because, Sean and I have been in communication now since 2014, since before Sean went to prison. I'm sorry, 2016, since before Sean went to prison and basically right after I got out of prison. So, Sean, for people that don't know who you are, and I'm sure most people do, I mean, you got two YouTube channels. You got Federal Prison Talk with 3,000 plus subscribers. You got another channel with a couple thousand subscribers. But for people that don't know you, tell people a little bit about your history, even before you went to prison, because you've also overcame some severe substance abuse. So take people back, maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes on who you are, what you went through, and then we'll kind of segue into what you're doing today. So go ahead and take it away, Sean.
Sure. Yeah, I was born and raised in San Francisco. In kind of the bad neighborhoods, broken home, father was a wife beater, child beater, all that, molested at 5. I tell you that. My therapist told me if I say that every time, it makes me stronger. The feds paid for that, by the way. But, I didn't have the greatest life, right? And then we moved to Oakland, and I'm white. So imagine. So a lot of years there. But I go back to that neighborhood now. It's not a problem. But I didn't have the best childhood. Then I ended up working 20-something years in hotels and restaurants, getting nowhere in life, losing jobs, started, in drugs in high school. It escalated. I ended up kind of a crack addict running around the streets, yelling and screaming at cars. But on the side, I always thought, I'm smarter than this. And I was so smart that I owe the government $1.7 million now for wire fraud. What I did was I did false tax returns for hundreds of homeless people. I took 20%. They took 80%. And at the time, I thought it was Robin Hood. And now I know I was just a thief. Doesn't matter who you steal from. It's taking accountability for who you are. And that takes a lot of hard work and a lot of years to accomplish that. So while I was on pretrial, I learned how to work on myself. And when I got to prison, worked on my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit. I still do that today. Now
and so people, and just so people understand, Sean, you didn't go to prison for crack or marijuana or any other drugs. And I want to commend you on being able to even talk about that. A lot of people are too embarrassed to even talk about past substance abuse, unless it was like marijuana or drinking. But you're talking about some of the more, at least the way our social outlook looks at it. Crack, cocaine, it's a pretty hardcore, rough drug. So I give you commendable, good comments there on bringing that up. But that's not what you went to prison for. So why did you go to prison? Kind of take people through that.
That was strictly the wire fraud. Again, I'm in another drug rehab, and it's kind of a transitional house. But there was a guy who was working for somebody else, trying to get people to get Obama stimulus money, stimulus check. You get that by filing your taxes, but nobody had a job. The crowd I was kind of seeing. So I found a way to manipulate the system, get them $2,000 or $3,000 and go 3 years back and get them $7,000, $8,000. Me and this one guy were splitting it up 20%. They told 2 friends. They told 2 friends. Next thing you know, I got 9 co-defendants. We owe $1.7 million. They wanted their tax refunds back, and that's the money that went through the bank accounts. So yeah, nothing to do with drugs. Although I had plenty of drug dealers and hookers and everybody else coming to me to get that refund. But no, nothing like that. Nothing in my history for 10 years on drugs. So how would I get an RDAP?
And also, how much time did you get for those charges, that what you pled guilty to?
Yeah, well, thanks to you, Dan, and a lot of hard work on my part, volunteering and proving to the judge that he didn't have to throw the book at me, and we can get into that later. But I was looking at 12 years, but I ended up with a 52-month sentence.
And when you say you were looking at 12 years, that was your actual guidelines with the plea agreement, correct? And the judge downward departed.
So the plea agreement was 71 to 96 months. We worked it down to that. But when I got to sentencing day, and thanks to you and Walt Pablo, if I can mention his name, you guys coached me, and I did a lot of hard work. It's not just you; you got to do a lot of hard work, guys. But I went down to 51 to 72 months, and I ended up getting 52 months.
And how much time? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no! Originally, looking at 12 years.
How much time did you actually serve out of that?
In prison hadn't kicked in yet, so I did 26 months in the camp, 5 months in at the federal halfway house, and then I was finished with my sentencing. Then I had 3 years federal probation, and that's all been. Yeah,
and you did RDAP, right?
I did RDAP.
So
we can talk about how would a guy with wire fraud get into RDAP? Nothing on my no arrest or anything in 10 years. Yet I did drugs, I drank, I did drugs, but there's nothing to prove it.
And that's kind of, that's the other part of today's conversation, guys, is there's lots of misconceptions when it comes to RDAP. A lot of people think they have to have a drug crime, and really your crime, obviously there are crimes that can disqualify you from RDAP, but you don't have to have a drug crime to qualify for RDAP. You just have to have a substance abuse history of drug abuse within a certain period of time. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because now, kind of jumping forward, here we are in 2025. And Sean, you're an actual chemical dependency professional that you went to school for, over a year of school, several hundred hours of studying, passing tests, getting recommendations. You can now interview people and help them not only have a better chance of getting into RDAP before they do their pre-sentence report, but as you know, many of our clients, they're not told by their attorney the importance of the pre-sentence interview, and they're not told by their attorney how important it is to mention substance abuse, specific timelines prior to doing their pre-sentence report. So they get this report back, they get to prison, they think they're going to take this program, and then due to a technicality, they no longer qualify. That's where somebody like Sean Cowgill can come in, because if you don't have the information in your PSR, you can get an evaluation from a licensed chemical dependency professional to offset what's missing. But I'll tell you, and Sean can probably attest to this, we'll ask Sean in a second, one of the problems that you'll have a lot of the times when you go out and just hire a third-party chemical dependency professional, because anybody with a license technically can do the evaluation. But if they don't have a good understanding of how the program works, because it's within a certain time frame prior to your indictment, so if whoever's doing this evaluation doesn't really tie down those timeframes and give very specific dates, amounts, frequency, really a lot of the things that a RDAP coordinator or a prison psychologist is going to look at to potentially qualify you, you can go waste all this time and resource on this report, and it's really not going to be much more validating than what's already in your PSR. So Sean, real quick, touch on that a little bit. I think you've told me you've helped over a dozen people that wouldn't have qualified for RDAP without you. Is that correct?
Right. Anyone could take the RDAP program, but not anyone qualifies for the time off. So even if you didn't qualify, I still recommend RDAP. But a lot of people don't understand the time zone. So let's say you robbed a bank, but you were clean and sober when you robbed the bank. You're not going to qualify, because all you have, the judge is going to say, well, why should I send you RDAP? You weren't doing drugs or alcohol or anything then. You just did the crime for greed. We don't have a program for greed. But that's why it's important that you were under some kind of influence, drugs. You didn't have to be high at the time you committed the crime, but that was kind of your lifestyle, whether it's pills, whether it's, marijuana, whatever it is. That explains to the judge why you did the crime. That's part of that's now they can help you with that part of the criminal. The criminal aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also important to note, right, Sean, because you're talking about getting like a recommendation from a court, when even if you told the judge you were using and all of these things, and a judge does recommend RDAP, it still doesn't mean you're going to get in, right? It really kind of happens what you told the probation officer. So let's take a case where maybe somebody was drinking on, they were a crazy drinker on the weekends, or maybe they were smoking marijuana on a regular basis, or they were using a little bit of cocaine here and there. But during the time of their pre-sentence interview, they didn't mention it because they thought either it could hurt their chances, they're going to get in more trouble, they were embarrassed, they're ashamed. Now they've already done the pre-sentence interview, and now they start finding out some of this criteria later on. What can your services do to help individuals like that?
Yeah, because you got enough on your plate, so you don't want to say that you drugs or alcohol. God, you're gonna make it worse, right? No, but now it's kind of too late. But there is a rule in the RDAP, and I think I've sent you that rule, Dan. You could go to a probation officer, parole officer that would know you. You can go to a drug and alcohol counselor. That's kind of what I am now. The wording's changed over the years. You can go to a treatment provider, and I'm also that. Or you can also go to a medical doctor. Medical doctor doesn't really understand the lived experience. He hasn't been through that. So I'm also a clinician. I'm a medical provider. I have all these titles within that certificate, and I've been where you're at. So I'm also going to know if you're just trying to you're just trying to run the system. You know what I mean?
And then so you're able to do this evaluation with them, which is usually done like over the phone or over Zoom. You're going to go through their whole timeline of when they started using, maybe at a young age, all the way up until they stopped using, which is usually around the time of their indictment, typically. But once this report is done, you're actually able to send the report to the prison or to the RDAP coordinator to offset any information that may be lacking in the pre-sentence report. So, and you said to me earlier today that you've done this for about 11 different individuals and you've had 11 success stories.
100% success. What I do is even if they're going to a camp or low that doesn't have RDAP, I send it to that prison psychiatrist or psychologist, because you're going to get evaluated by a shrink. You're going to get evaluated. Sorry. You're going to get evaluated. Very sorry about that. You're going to get evaluated by a prison psychologist, no matter if you have Dan.
Yeah, whether you have it, whether the prison has RDAP or not, the prison psychologist at the prison can still interview you for RDAP and qualify for RDAP. So if you get to a prison, because a lot of you don't know where you're going at sentencing. It takes several weeks after sentencing. Your paperwork goes to Grand Prairie. Then your paperwork from Grand Prairie gets sent to the BOP is going to designate you based on your sentencing guidelines, your computation, your needs. And if there's no mention of substance abuse at the time of the pre-sentence report, you may not make it to a prison that that has RDAP. So now you're thinking, oh my God, I can't qualify for RDAP. Well, any prison psychologist, no matter what prison you're at, can still interview you and still prep you and qualify you for RDAP. And then if they deem that you're qualified, they'd put you in for a transfer and send you somewhere. So Sean, even if they don't get to a prison with RDAP, you can still do the substance abuse evaluation. Now, obviously, it's determined on them having a long enough sentence and all of that. But if once that is determined, you can then still help them get into the program. What's that been like to help people that otherwise would not have been able to get into the program that did need help?
Well, because a lot of people are scared to admit that they did that, and now it's too late. You've made your plea deal. You've done your pre-sentence report, but there's a little clause in the RDAP rule that you can still have a letter, but it's got to be from a professional provider, like I mentioned. Now, the judge will recommend RDAP to everyone, but he's not telling you that you're not going to get the time off. He just recommends that you take the program because anybody can take it. That's what the recommendation means.
Well, anybody can take it, but they still have to meet the requirements even to take it. So getting into RDAP is half the battle, and then qualifying for the sentence reduction is the other half of the battle. Like we have some sex offenders, for an example, that have they're not hands-on. They're kind of like the child pornography cases. They can take RDAP, but they're not going to qualify for the sentence reduction. Bank robbers, because bank robbers are considered a violent crime, even if you didn't use a gun. Putting that fear in somebody is considered a violent crime. So even if you rob the bank, you can still take RDAP, but you're not going to get the sentence reduction. But for the average person, that's like a first-time nonviolent offender, wire fraud, tax fraud, drugs-related crimes, as long as there's no violence, no guns involved, you can technically qualify for RDAP as long as you meet a lot of the criteria. But let's also talk about the person, because a lot of people haven't done their PSR yet. And obviously, you don't have to hire a chemical dependency professional to do a report if you haven't done your PSR, because it's really down to what you mentioned at the time of the pre-sentence interview. However, I've seen many of clients, many of defendants, many of people who just watch my channel like you guys that did mention it to the probation officer, but the probation officer did not do a good job in articulating that back into the report to the point where they told the probation officer, and the probation officer said, yes, they had a substance abuse problem, but they didn't go over a strong grid of the timelines and when they were using. So they end up not qualifying because the RDAP coordinator goes, well, it says that you use, but we don't know when. So in my opinion,
that's important.
In my opinion, it would even benefit these individuals even prior to doing the pre-sentence interview, even if they don't think they need a substance abuse evaluation, because we kind of have that on deck. Now, Sean's I don't know if I told you guys, but Sean's going to be joining FPT Consulting as our chemical dependency professional. I think it's really cool because now, no matter who our clients are, no matter what point they are in the phase, even in the very early pre-trial phases, you haven't done your plea agreement yet, or you just did your plea agreement, but more importantly, you haven't done your PSR interview, we can still get a substance abuse evaluation done for you that you can provide the probation officer at the time of the interview to make sure that those timelines are covered. Because now what they're going to do, instead of just jotting down, let's just back it up for a second, Sean. Let's talk about what goes on during the pre-sentence interview, the purpose of it. So the purpose of the probationary report is it's a non-biased third-party review where you've got the government who wants to sink your battleship. You've got your criminal defense attorney who wants to get you the best deal possible, and then U.S. probation is supposed to take all the information from the prosecutor. They're supposed to take all the information from you, and then they're supposed to make an independent recommendation to the court. Problem is, most people go in to do their pre-sentence interview very ill prepared to the point where they maybe spend 30 minutes to an hour and a half sitting with probation, going over a bunch of yes and no questions, where probation's asking you a bunch of random questions. You're giving a bunch of quick yes and no answers. And then your entire life history is being based off of that, where the government has submitted terabytes worth of information, making you look like one of the worst criminals in the United States. So it's very off kilter. So the more information that you're able to bring in to the probation, to the pre-sentence interview, like your personal narrative, a report from Sean, instead of just answering those yes and no questions, you can now present them with a packet. And most of the time, U.S. probation is so pleased with this that you'll hear them make statements like, I wish every defendant came in this prepared. Not only are you making their job easier, but they're copy and pasting a lot of the stuff that you sent them, adding it into the proper sections of the pre-sentence report, which is going to improve that probation is more likely to give you a positive recommendation to the court, which it's not always going to yield a shorter sentence, but it's sure not going to yield a longer sentence. So, Sean, do you think there's value in somebody doing a substance abuse evaluation, even if they haven't done their PSR yet, to increase the chances of having a better value in their PSR?
Oh, most definitely. But you need a reputable source. And I've accomplished that, believe it or not. But you are about to be a convicted felon. So really your word is kind of worthless at this point. Try to convince your RDAP coordinator. You're sitting there, or you get to the prison and you're now a convicted felon in prison trying to get a year off, and you have no credibility anymore. So that's where you need a reputable source, someone who's been through it, like me. I have all the credentials now, and I work hand in hand with federal probation here in Albuquerque all the time. I actually could walk into the courthouse on the side. I don't have to go through the metal detector. Blows my mind. But
and I just posted a link, guys. I just posted a link in the live chat. There's a link for a free consultation in here. It's also in the description of this video. You can click on that. There's also a description or a link to Sean's YouTube channel in this video. And also the other thing that Sean's doing, which is really cool, Sean's come a long way, guys. That's kind of why we want to really talk about him and have him working with us, because he's not just somebody with another YouTube channel. He actually is doing the substance abuse as a chemical dependency evaluator, but he's also he got hired, I believe it's through the BOP directly. He's working for federal halfway houses, and anybody that graduates RDAP, they're required to do a minimum of 4 months in a federal halfway house, 120 days in a federal halfway house, where they do what's called TDAP. It's like the transition version of RDAP. And we're going to show a quick clip here. I'm going to mute it so Sean can talk while he's talking. But here's a clip. Sean, kind of walk us through a little bit about what people are seeing right here.
Okay, I think this is the first one I did. So it's co-ed, and these people come from all over the country. They're living at the federal halfway house. This one I actually had a couple college interns that were sitting in on it, and a few coworkers. But that's what a federal halfway house looks like. One of their rooms. It's here in Albuquerque, run by Dearson Charities, and you have to do at least 4 months. Like you said, 120 hours. Twice a week. You do a group one, and then you do a one-on-one with a therapist. And if you don't finish these, they'll send you back to prison and take that year away. So you have to do these.
And you're doing this 4 times a week now, you said, right?
Now it's this. I'm with a new organization now. So I'm doing it. Actually, the state of New Mexico has an RDAP program as well. It's a little different than the federal one, but they've accepted the federal version. So now I got people coming out of state prisons and federal prisons. So I'm doing kind of a TDAP and then a New Mexico TDAP version.
And so how weird is it to be doing this kind of stuff? Because let's go back to, and Sean shared with me earlier, he's got every single email that Sean and I ever corresponded with from 2016 up to date. And if you saw Sean's state of mind, I think Sean even told me at one point he attempted to take his own life, kind of going through this process. So to see where you were at, what you thought your limitations were, because it's important for people to hear this. A lot of our clients are doctors, attorneys, accountants, pharmacists, and they think there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And now here you are, not just giving back and helping, but you're actually hired by the very people who kind of imprisoned you to begin with. What does that feel like for you? Is that
yeah? And if you see my last show with the director Mitchell Anderson, he's the director of the Federal Halfway House. Been on my show 3 times. You could see our relationship has grown. The last one we did, answering questions from a live audience. So when I go to the Federal House, they just come on in, they ring the buzzer. It blows my mind. Don't you guys know who I am? They know who I am. But the thing is, your life's not over, guys. It's not over at all. I've got a friend, he got his nursing license back. Another one got his CPA license back. Got a land developer, you get your life back. But you got to put in the work. And it starts with RDAP. RDAP, I recommend RDAP so much that now I do it for a living, Who'd have thought 6 years after prison, I'm teaching RDAP, but it's a great program.
And I think a lot of people that I think it's okay to have kind of, I don't want to say it's great to have wrong intentions, but even I'll take myself as an example. When I went through this whole process, because I did RDAP too, for those of you who don't know, hence the name RDAP Dan. But when I first heard about RDAP, I didn't think I needed RDAP. I just wanted the time off. I wanted to get the year off. And for those of you that don't know, I was sentenced to 42 months for working for a doctor that was over-prescribing pain medication out of Savannah, Georgia. I was sentenced to 42 months. I ended up serving 13 months. That was 13 months in prison. I was given 11 months halfway house, and I got a year off for the program. However, when I was thinking about getting into RDAP, kind of my thought of RDAP, and a lot of you may have the same thought. This is why it's important to really understand what RDAP really is and what it's not. What RDAP is not is even though it's a substance abuse, a drug and alcohol substance abuse class. I think Sean will attest to this, and anybody that's been through it, the program actually has very little to do with drugs and alcohol. It has a lot more to do with cognitive thinking, what the consequences of your actions are, how this is affecting your family. And even though that you're initially taking it just to get the year off, what happens is once you start going through these motions long enough, you start doing the pull-ups, you start doing the RSAs, you start doing the attitude checks, you start holding your friends and family accountable for a lot of the ways that you were living your life prior, you start to see this new change take over inside of you, which is not an overnight process. It really is a process of growth that before you know it, you're like, oh my God, I'm now doing things that I've never would have done. I'm now holding my friends and family accountable in a way that is going to push some people away. You have to be okay with that, or else, and Sean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people go back to prison from just minor mistakes or violate probation from minor mistakes. And Sean and I are convicted felons now. So if Sean just got out of prison yesterday and comes over to my house and I'm like, hey, you want to go for a ride? And Sean knows that maybe, the old Dan used to carry a gun or Dan used to drive around with drugs. If Sean says to me, hey, is there anything in the car? And I'm like, yeah, but don't worry about it. He's going to make that conscious decision to tell me I can't go with you, even though it's hard to say because you're potentially causing a rift between you and your friends. But what happens when I do get pulled over and there's a gun in the car or there's drugs in the car and the cop says, whose is it? And it's in the middle of the floor. And I'm like, it's not mine. Sean's now hit, violating, going back to prison for for just allowing himself to associate with people that are not living the proper lifestyle. Have you seen people go through this, Sean?
All the time. Just because you get off probation, off paper, that can actually be worse. If a cop pulls you over and, oh, this guy's been in now, he's off paper now. Oh, we're going to change that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
we see it in the prison too, right? We see it with cell phones a lot. You know, at camps, cell phones are a dime a dozen, and even more so lately now for some reason. And if you end up getting to a prison camp, you plan on doing the right thing for the right reasons, and your cellie or your bunkie has a cell phone, and they come in and do a shakedown, and your cellie tosses it on the floor. Most people aren't going to tell on each other. They're not going to go, oh, it was his. So the CO is going to go, hey, whose cell phone is this? Nobody's going to claim it. And he's great. Everybody gets a Series 100 shop. You're now kicked out of RDAP. You're definitely going to lose, in addition to losing your time off for RDAP, you're going to lose good time. You're going to lose phone privileges. You're going to lose visitations. You're going to lose commissary. And you're going to continue to hurt your family further than you are. Sean, talk a little bit about this. You told me that there was a point when you got in trouble and nobody would take your call. Your family didn't want a fucking thing to do with you. They were done with your bullshit and your misbehavior. What was that? What did that feel like, to feel like you had nobody to turn to? And what's your relationship like today with your family?
Yeah. So when I got indicted, I missed a court date. I had took the bond, but I missed a court date. And guess what happened? You missed a court date. I'm in a federal detention center now. Now I'm going to do all my time there, locked up. There was one chance I could get out to go to a drug program that the feds ran, but somebody needed to sign from a family, so I gave them all my relatives, cousins, aunts, everything. And apparently, the federal probation officer, they called about 5 of them, and they all said, "We don't want to know him. We're done with him. Please have him. We want a restraining order against him. We don't ever want contact with him again." I got a letter from one of them, from their lawyer, saying, "Don't ever contact us again. We will report this to your probation officer, parole officer, whatever hell that you are living in today. We don't want to know. You are no longer part of the family." And I got that from the mom's side and the dad's side.
What did that feel like?
And, you know, I'm facing prison. I haven't even been sentenced yet. That's why I wanted to commit suicide. They let me get out to go to that drug program, and it felt, it's the worst feeling ever. And now that's kind of dramatic for some of you, but you are hurting your family when you made all those decisions. It's not a bad choice. That's a chicken sandwich instead of a Big Mac. You made a decision that put your family, the healing to fix all that, to repair that damage. You start now. That's what I tell people who talk to me. It's going to be a long process. Here it is, 10-something years later. Everyone on my dad's side loves me. They're probably watching this right now. They said they watch all my videos. They're proud of me. And the mom's side, cousins and aunts and stuff, they're reaching out to me. My brother has a son that he didn't know about, that through my video channel on my mom's side contacted me, and now my brother's going to meet this son he never met. I mean, beautiful things have happened.
And I
got to put in the work. You got to put the work in, guys. You know,
I imagine when they didn't want to talk to you or have anything to do with you, I imagine that wasn't like the first time that you had put them in a bad spot, right? It wasn't like all of a sudden Sean was living this perfect life and then had one bad mishap. This was a series of events that have kind of created a pattern.
It's the first time. It's the second time you go to jail. The third time he's in another rehab. Maybe you don't even get caught. But oh no, he's again. He didn't come home last night for 3 days again. You know, they can only take so much. Okay.
Right.
And then they just wipe their hands. The best night that your family gets of sleep is when you are locked up in jail. They can finally sleep.
And that's hard to hear for a lot of people because you're not alone in those feelings. You know, you might feel alone in the moment of going through it. I remember having conversations with you, you know, where you were definitely kind of doubting out on your luck. And that's really when I was in my like go phase of just getting out and all this power in reading and RDAP material, and not so much the material, like the study books are great, but it was really a lot of the re-education process. A lot of the stuff that you learn in RDAP is not that different of anything you might read in self-help books, read in the Bible. The difference is when somebody tells you, like when you're a kid and you hear the phrase "sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me," it doesn't really resonate with you, because if it did, when somebody says something slick to you or pulls out in front of you or gives you the finger, you would let it slide because they're not putting their hands on you. They're just doing a stupid action and you're allowing it to affect your emotions. But yet you say, you know what all these things mean. So in RDAP, this stuff is installed. So people that are going into RDAP right now, they're thinking they're just going to go tap dance their way through this. I used to imagine RDAP being like if you were to get pulled over for a speeding ticket and they tell you, hey, if you go to driving school, you can knock these points off your license. We've all been to driving school. You don't have to pay attention. You go sit in a 4-hour class. You fall asleep if you want. You mess around. You're talking to somebody next to you. And then you pass this like super ridiculous test and you're good to go. RDAP is nothing like that. RDAP is a very peer-oriented group where your peers are holding you accountable. You're holding them accountable. You're required to give feedback, give feedback, receive feedback, and how you process that is how you get through the program. And dangling that time over your head, 6, 9, 12 months. I think graduating RDAP for me was far more dramatic and emotional than my actual release day from prison. I don't know how you feel about that, because I left prison about 2 weeks after graduating for RDAP. And the day I graduated from RDAP, it was such a emotional roller coaster of feelings. I was like, oh my God, if this is what graduating RDAP feels like, I can't imagine how good it's going to feel on my release day. And I was kind of sad on my release day. I didn't feel as overwhelmed. I didn't feel as excited and sad as I did on my graduation from RDAP. I think for somebody like you and me, accomplishing something that seems so impossible because we've never been able to do it before in our lives, it really does set that bar of I can fucking do anything.
A very special day graduating for RDAP. And the DTS, that's the drug treatment specialist. They let me go on stage. I wrote a song while on prison. I played it on guitar with a microphone. It's on my videos. I have pictures of the graduation day. You can even have your family come to see you on graduation day. But it was a really big deal for me. You are not in prison that day. You feel like you're at the college campus. You'd be surprised how many staff members come to graduation to see us graduate, and tears come to their eyes, and it's very emotional on their it's a day I just won't forget.
And now you're teaching the class, which is wild.
Yep. I don't know in my strategies for success, but my favorite chapter is believing in myself. When we get to that chapter, that's the one that's going to change everything, guys.
Yeah, Sean's got all of the books. He's got the facilitator workbook, which is the workbook that the RDAP coordinators and facilitators use. And again, this video that we pulled up over here, I think I still have it up over here. This is Sean at a halfway house conducting the class, not volunteering. He's getting paid to do this, guys. So if you're wondering what your limitations are by going to prison, yes, there are going to be some, but by far, is it going to redefine you in a bad way? I think it's the way we look at it initially, thinking no one's going to hire me. No one's going to love me. I'm never going to be able to get the kind of job I want to get. I'm always going to be viewed as a criminal. And there's some truth to that. There are people that will continue to judge you. But like Sean said earlier, the more you talk about it, your therapist told you to talk about some of these things that were kind of your dark passenger, your shadow. By talking about it, it makes you more accountable, more aware of it. And it really makes you realize it's not the end of the world, and when you do, and I don't know for you, but every time I talk about my situation, if anybody that knows me for longer than 2 minutes finds out my entire prison history in about 30 seconds, they all either relate to it directly or know somebody that's been through something similar. And it really does open up a whole different, very intimate, personal form of dialogue that you probably wouldn't have these kind of connections. So being vulnerable and practicing humiliation can open up doors for other people to feel comfortable to share their trauma, their journeys with you. And that might be the one conversation that saves somebody from jumping out of a window. Sean, I want to leave people, and I'll let you kind of give your sign off here in a second, because I know you said you have a little cliche tag about prison for you. For me, you know what it is. People have people, communities, method, one day at a time. But We've got a free consultation. There's a link in the description of this video. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. You could be under federal investigation. You could have just got indicted. You could have just done your plea agreement. You could be getting ready to do your PSR. You could have already done your PSR. You could already be sentenced. There's a lot of things that can be done that can either A, potentially give you a better sentence up front, or B, help you qualify for additional programs like RDAP, First Step Act, Second Chance, getting additional halfway house, home confinement, mindset coaching, how to deal with your family. There's a lot of things that can not only shave time off of this, but really better your mindset to help you get through this and come out the other side stronger. And now having Sean as a part of the team, one of the biggest ingredients that we've never really had on lock was the chemical dependency professional evaluation. Anybody can do them that has the license, but the problem is if they don't understand the dynamic of the timelines, you might have an incomplete report that covers the basics, but it's not going to do you any good when you get into RDAP. Sean's got an 11 out of 11 success for people that have needed this evaluation. They sent it into the BOP, and without that report, they would not have qualified for RDAP. My opinion is, even if you haven't done your PSR yet, don't risk in leaving it up to the probation officer to miss information on there. Get a copy of a report, get your hands on this, get with Sean, put a link in that consultation. Let's get you on a call with Sean, do the evaluation, and give it to your probation officer, your attorney, and have that entered in as part of your PSR. It's only going to increase your chances to not only get the best possible sentence, but help you have the best possible mindset to come out right on the other side. So that's really all I got for today. But Sean, what do you want to leave people with here? Maybe some final famous words from Sean Cowgill.
Yeah, but I also want to co-tell on what you just said, because I also call the RDAP coordinator. I've had many conversations with them. One at, well, Morgantown's closing now and a few others, but Yankton, I have conversations with them. I send them your paper evaluation letter of recommendation, all that before you even get to the prison. Nobody else is going to do that for you. I go out of my way. I at least will send them a packet before you have your RDAP interview with the coordinator. They're already going to have your evaluation for me and my recommendation. But I want to say that your life, I always tell people, your life's not over, it's just beginning. Even if you are 72 years old, okay, people are living longer. You're gonna get through this. Some people are very old that the government has no age discrimination. Don't give up on yourself. It's not over, it's just beginning. This is like the best chapter of the book. If somebody's reading the book of your life, this is where it gets good, right? This is where it gets good. And you got to learn to believe in yourself. You can get through this, okay? It's not over. And your career, it's going to be amazing. The knowledge that you get when you come through this. On my resume, it says I've been molested, I've been homeless, I've been in jails, I've been in rehabs, I've been in federal prison. I got through all that, I survived. I'm the guy you want to hire. That's the first thing on my resume. That resume got me this job teaching RDAP, working for the federal federal halfway house. So guys, do not think this is the end of it. But the services, me and Dan, see, we've been there, we understand, and we can walk you through this. So when you get to sentencing day, you're more than prepared. You're coached, your mindset has changed, and that's what you need right now. You need somebody like us, because I don't think you've had people on your side. Lawyers are great; they do what they do. But me and Dan, and we're here for you. Okay?
I think that's very. And you came up with your own little phrase here, Sean, that's meaningful to you. What is that?
So prison saved my life. You'll hear that all the time, but prison gave me a life. Because of prison, I have the most wonderful life I've ever dreamed of. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And if I had to go back in time, I would do it all over again.
And that's hard for people to hear that haven't gone through it. And I'll piggyback on that with, you'll commonly hear me say, my prison experience was overwhelmingly positive. I don't want to go do it again. Pre-trial, where you're at right now in your phase, you haven't gone to prison yet, you're indicted, under federal investigation, waiting for sentencing, all of that. This is the real prison sentence, because you have all this fear of the unknown. So if you can get through this part of it, which most of you are going to get through it unscathed, but if you're taking the right steps, you're properly preparing, and preparation for release really does start now, guys. I can't stress enough. There's a free link in the in the description of this video. Book yourself a free consultation. It's a 15-20 minute call. It could be the call that saves your life. You're not obligated to do anything beyond that. We obviously do have services you can hire us for, but even with this content that we put out on a regular basis, the free consultation, that could be the difference that you need. Guys, I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Sean Cowgill, I thank you so much for joining me today. We're definitely going to be doing more videos with Sean. People helping people, communities method, one day at a time, guys. See you soon. Peace.